What's good, my ghouls and goblins? How's it going? A happy, spooky Wednesday to you. Coming at you live at a special time this week. Thanks for joining us today. So good to have the top goblin back to my side here. How you doing, buddy?
Dead by dawn. Dead by dawn. No, I'm good. I'm excited to talk about one of the entries in my favorite universe. People talk about Marvel or DC. For me, it's Evil Dead.
For you, it's Evil Dead, and it's very apparent by the new setup you got rocking over there. You got Ash Williams himself hung up there, looking good.
Got him on my shirt. Got him on my blanket. He's everywhere.
How are you feeling? We missed you last week. Have you? How's it feel to be a post COVID man? You got any Johnson & Johnson superpowers over there or what?
No, Johnson & Johnson kicked my ass. They ganged up on me and just kicked my ass.
Johnson & Johnson got me fucked up.
Seriously. Fuck those guys.
Hey, favorite goal in the chat. So happy to see you back, Connor. Glad you're feeling better. So love all around. Thank you for watching.
Oh, yeah.
Cool. Yes, last week I was riding solo with the fellows from the George Lucas Talk Show, Connor Ratliff and Patrick Cotnoir. Luckily, two guys who were no strangers to podcasting, so we still found plenty to talk about. Had a lot of great people from the Planet Scum world check us out. So if you're tuning in tonight, whether it's live or after the fact, thank you for checking us out. Thank you for spending time with us. We appreciate you. This is, of course, Reely Scared, the weekly horror movie podcast in which every single week we're joined by a special guest to discuss a horror film of their choice. Never know who's going to pop up. Never know what we're going to discuss. And we've got a great one. Long time coming tonight. Real quick before we bring him in here, though, do all the great things that you do when you want to support a podcast. If you could follow it, subscribe to it, like it, comment on it, rate it. I don't know. It makes me feel good. And it helps us out. And Connor also wants to tell you what else you could do.
You're going to want to leave a little cutie.
Just a little cute review.
Don't leave any, demonic prayers or anything that are going to bring some demons from the underworld. Just a cutie. That's all we want is a cutie.
You don't have to write a whole Necronomicon. Just a sweet little cute review. A couple of words about what you like about the show. You could do it in the YouTube comments. You could do it on the review column of your favorite podcasting platform. We're on all of them. You must listen to us on all of them. So holler at us. Not only does it make us feel good, Connie feel good. Thank you for watching, Nick Paula. Thanks for tuning in. Not only does it make us feel good, but it does help the show out, helps us build the platform up, and will open us up to even cooler opportunities down the road. So we appreciate the support. Thank you for tuning in. Happy Wednesday to you. Coming at you at a special time of the week. Matt Thomas shouting out the new setup for Connie Feel Good. It looks great.
Thank you.
I had nothing against your spooky little den that you've been occupying previously, but look at this. This looks
it's spacious. I like it. I like it a lot.
You could do anything in there. You could get up and do a little jig, and the furniture could do a little jig, and I'm
gonna do the podcast from back here.
Can you give me a little Bruce Campbell up and down? Little dance move. Do you know what I'm talking about? Where he's laughing, everybody's laughing at him. Can you do that for me?
I don't remember the dance move. Maybe our guest can help me out. Maybe our guest can help me out. I'll do it with him.
Maybe he can help us out. And Nick Wellbach, most handsome man of the channel in the chat, calling us all cuties. We appreciate you. We love you. Let's get our man in here. Long time coming. You might know him. He's the co-host of shows like Wrestle Reel and Spin from the Reel on this very channel. You might know him as the host of For Chris's Sake, available on all podcasting platforms. And you may know him as our good friend, Chris Anthony Lopez. Ghouls and Goblins, put your hands together.
This is my boomstick. This one. Yes. Hello. Oh my gosh. We're back at it again.
Welcome, Chris. How are you doing tonight?
I'm good. Yeah, man. I'm back on Reely Scared properly. When was the first time I was on? I've been on the show before, right?
Well, when you think about it from a certain perspective, the new live run of Really Scared really begins with you watching what, Pet Cemetery, if I'm correct. Was that it?
Pets. Yeah, that was the first one. Yeah.
I think that was the first time the Really Scared branding had showed up on
Hi,
the
Jazz.
channel since I was recording little podcasts in my bedroom all by myself. Still recording in my bedroom, but now I do it with you guys. So the show kind of lives and dies by you, sir. But I think
Nah, you're too kind.
I don't know. Obviously, you were on the Godzilla Kong little bonus.
Oh yeah, we did do that, didn't we?
We did do that, and you chatted Hoobie Halloween with us. You've been all over this show.
Damn, I forgot about that. I was yucking everybody's yum that day. I was the yucker. That was me. I'm King Yum, and I was like the Yuckmeister that day.
Yeah, somebody has to be. Not often you, but
right.
On that day, everybody loved Hoobie. So
it was that movie, man. It was that damn movie.
Well, we got a different movie to talk about tonight. One that you yourself chose, as is the format of this show. You chose Evil Dead 2.
Yes.
And I'm very fascinated by this one. I can't wait to kind of get into this and see why this was the one for you. Because forgive me if I'm wrong here, but I think it's pretty well documented across this channel. Horror, not necessarily your bag, typically speaking.
Where would you get that idea from? I have no idea. But no, like horror isn't my cup of tea at all. Like I'm a documented chicken shit. You can say that. It's okay. I can't handle it. Watching this movie again, I was like, like it got me a few times, and I documented them. So if we talk about certain parts of the film, I'll let you know when I got spooked. But I'm no stranger to horror, though, by any means. I've definitely gone to the theater to see horror movies. I grew up watching a lot of horror movies. Famously, I think Child's Play 2 was one of the movies on repeat as a child. My mom showed me that. I distinctly remember the hallway scene from Child's Play 2. Connor, I think we talked about this when I was over at your crib.
Yeah.
It's like horror movies to me. They may not be my cup of tea. I respect them, but there are just some I really, really enjoy or love, and Evil Dead 2 just happens to be one of them. Just one of the few. There's a select few.
Yeah, of all the movies, I'm very excited to talk about this movie, but I would never, if I had to pull it from thin air and guess which movie you would have chose. I don't know that this was the one I would ever have come, because we don't really put any restrictions on what guests can pick. If you had said I want to talk about the Scooby-Doo movie, I would say let's do it. Let's talk about the Scooby-Doo movie.
Well, I didn't know that.
And I wouldn't have been surprised had you said that. But this one, this is a cult classic, to say the least. This is a we haven't even really talked about some of these real iconic horror franchises yet, so this is a whole different and exciting opportunity for us.
Good.
But this is an intense movie. This is a gross out, bloody, dirty, slimy, surreal, crazy movie. I was just surprised. I didn't know you got down like this.
I would be interested to hear why you chose the second one.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
First one.
Totally. But Taylor, to address what you said real quick, all those words you used to describe Evil Dead 2, I've been called all those things at one point or another. So it kind of made sense, But why I chose Evil Dead 2 over the first Evil Dead and Army of Darkness was this one's my favorite of the bunch. This is the one that I prefer. The psychological thriller of the Sam Raimi trilogy of Evil Dead films. Like, the first one's a straight up horror movie. The second one is a psychological thriller that's sprinkled with horror themes and visuals that I guarantee we'll touch on. And Army of Darkness is funny as hell. That movie's a comedy, as far as I'm concerned, with obviously Evil Dead sprinkled in. But Universal had their hands all over that SOB, and I'm like, nah, I'm hard pass. But why I chose this one was I kind of fell into Evil Dead backwards. I watched Ash vs. Evil Dead first.
Really?
So I found the first season of Ash vs. Evil Dead on Netflix. And I knew of Bruce Campbell. I knew who he was. I didn't know too much about him, but I knew him like, yeah, that guy from Evil Dead. I knew that was him. And I watched it, and I fell in love with that show. I thought that show was so good. It did a great job of recapping the films I hadn't seen at that time.
Mhm.
And like it was a great way to jump into the franchise because the first season they recapped the hell out of the first 2 movies.
Yeah.
Like and they let you know what happened in those films. Not really the third one for I think studio reasons, or I know like Stars is not like Universal proper or whatever. But the first 2, they did a great job telling you that. And I just gravitated myself towards the second one because I think it's more. I think some of the visuals are more iconic. When people think Evil Dead, I think people get the 2 confused, and they think of the second one more than the first one. And they kind of retcon some things in the beginning of this one that made me not want to talk about the first one, fully knowing some of those things don't matter in the end. And the second one's like, oh, we'll switch some of those things up for the sake of future films or whatever the hell, even though this universe and this timeline's wonky as hell. So,
this is one of those weird movies that like it is like a reboot, but also a proper sequel at the same time. It's really weird because you're right. At the very beginning, it completely retcons a lot of the first one.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they're like, oh yeah, there's no friends.
No friends. The cabin wasn't on fire. The Necronomicon or the Book of the Dead still a thing. They didn't burn it like how the first one or how they thought it would be.
But then it picks up like immediate, like right where the first one ended. It was like, yeah, a bunch of the stuff didn't actually happen, but we're gonna pick up where the first one ended.
Right. So Evil Dead 2 to me, it's a lot. If I had to pick a movie to talk horror flicks with, and it was something that y'all hadn't touched on before, and I know there's some other obvious ones probably that you would have thought I would have chosen because we've talked about them in nauseum, whether on this channel or on other conversations that we've had. But I want it to be a little bit different, and y'all hadn't touched Evil Dead 2, and I think Connor likes Evil Dead, so I'm like, you know what? Like, I think let's do Evil Dead, specifically the second one, my favorite of the bunch.
Of all franchises, this is definitely one where you can just, because I'm sure inevitably we will probably talk about the first one at length. I'm sure somebody will come along and say they want to do the first Evil Dead, but this does have the rare distinction of where you totally can just jump into the second one and you're going to be fine. Because like you said, it totally does. It not only recaps, but it condenses the first movie down to the first 10 minutes of this movie.
Right.
Which I always thought was just some weird creative decision they made, and I never really bothered to investigate because it seems like an odd choice. I never really bothered to investigate why they did that until recently. I don't know if Connor, you'd read about this at all.
Wasn't it like a choice by Sam Raimi?
It was. So it's this weird thing where they made the first Evil Dead, and then by the time they got around to making this one, because a couple years pass, he makes Crime Wave with the Coen brothers. Like they had passed along the idea of doing a sequel, but he was resistant to it. And Crime Wave,
because that movie tanked.
Yeah, no one saw it. You know, it didn't do well critically, so he was like, okay, you know, I think maybe I'll get back to Evil Dead. But by the time he got around to making it, he didn't have any of the rights to the footage from the original one. Because originally they were just going to do a quick recap using footage from the first one. They didn't have any of the rights to it. So he's like, all right, I guess we'll just shoot it all over again. So he's like, what's the quickest way I can get to the end of that movie? We're going to cut out like 5 characters. We're just going to get all the major beats. He finds the tape recorder. His girlfriend dies. He buries her. And we're going to end with the exact same shot of the first film with that amazing, Sam Raimi cam flying into his mouth, and then just pick up from there. It's just what a bizarre way to have to make your movie. And then we got a Waffles attack in the background. He's checking it out. He's checking out the poster.
Did y'all see when Waffles looked into the camera and the eyes were all yellow? I saw that. That was sus.
He's a
sus,
Deadite.
Man, sus.
He's got so much room to play back there. But yeah, so they didn't have the rights to their footage. And then that same thing, I didn't realize this until recently, happens again in Army of Darkness. With the scene where he chainsaws his hand off. Once again, they go to make Army of Darkness. It's Universal, and they don't have the rights to the footage from the second Evil Dead, so they reshoot that scene. Like, just what a weird path through this. It is such a peculiar franchise of films, and that those first 10 minutes, I remember being so confused seeing them for the first time. I was just, what are we doing? We already did this. Where is everybody? Is he going to another cabin? What's going on?
I remember being like 13 and I was like, I don't get this. What is going on? Like, he's doing this again? You're an idiot.
Right. It's like, what? Like why?
I looked into it and I was like, oh, okay, that makes sense.
And without any prior knowledge of any of the crazy stuff behind the scenes in regards to these movies, like it definitely is weird watching it over again. I kind of, not that I don't want to say the first movie is bad, because it's not by any means, but it's a clean recap. It's clean and it goes by fast. It's entertaining. It's not like it's just, if it was a bad recap and they really just negated everything that happened in the first film, totally. But they took just the stuff with Linda and Ash and compressed it into 10 minutes and put it in front of Evil Dead 2, which I was totally fine with. They really condensed the hell out of it. But the first movie and the second movie are totally different tonally. All three movies, the entire franchise is different tonally. Yeah, like, I bet when the game comes out, it'll be different too.
Yeah, I watched it. So I hadn't seen anything Evil Dead in quite some time, actually. It was good to get back to this series. I wanted to rewatch everything in anticipation. This didn't quite get there, but I watched the first two movies again. And the first, they all kind of blend into their head for reasons that we've kind of obviously stated here. But the first one, I forget, really is kind of a straightforward horror flick. It's not that, it ain't that, it's campy in the fact that it's, it's a little dated and it's low budget, but totally, and in terms of intention, it's pretty straightforward horror flick and like pretty scary, at least in my opinion.
Oh yeah, I think it does hold up. The first one still scares me.
Yeah,
when she's poking out that like the basement, like that is still an iconic like image that scares the shit out of me still. The second one, there's a lot of comedy. It's very campy. They were like, let's take the camp that is like kind of just happens to be in the first one, and let's turn that up.
Yeah,
and Bruce Campbell has a lot more to chew on in this one than the first one. I mean, I love him in the first one, but in the second one, he just hams it up, chews the scenery, and he's so good in the second one.
This movie's his. This movie lives and dies off of how good Bruce Campbell is, and Bruce Campbell is. He's the reason why I stuck around. I don't know if you can make anybody else Ash Williams. I really don't know. Never. And I know it's easy to say because we've only had one. And it's like, oh, anyone can be Ash. No. Well, can they though? I think the thing with Bruce Campbell and this one, this was years in the making. His friendship with Sam Raimi and the trials and tribulations. No, man, I'm doing my best. I'm doing my best Bruce Campbell impression, but trust me, I won't show nip though. No nip.
Free that nip.
No, you gotta join the Patreon for that. But the trials and tribulations of this movie, like all you hear about is like the Sam Raimi stuff and Bruce Campbell and how awful shooting these movies were. At least the first two.
Yeah.
Like in the conditions of these. And I think that if these were big budget from the jump, it's like they don't have the same charm. And to Connor's point, in the second film, it's all Bruce. This entire movie is Bruce Campbell. And he is acting against himself, acting against his own hand. And like he is the mirror shots where you can clearly tell that's not Bruce Campbell. I'm like, this is so good. Because it's not like the other Bruce Campbell speaking to him. He's acting against a stunt guy, whatever the hell, a stand-in, which is probably Ivan Raimi for as far as we know. Like, who knows? Oh, but Bruce Campbell is Ash Williams. No one should ever try to do Ash again. Shit, the 2013 Fede Alvarez one didn't even have Ash until the end, and it was Bruce. Yeah. Because there's no way you can do it over. You can do Ash again.
Yeah.
And that's why you keep having that likeness, like in the game that's coming out soon, which I'm so excited to play and get my hands on, because I love this character. I love this franchise.
We'll be doing some streams of.
Oh, hell yeah. Hell yeah.
Yeah.
But Bruce Campbell is Ash Williams as far as I'm concerned. Like, I know, like, it's how James Earl Jones is Mufasa and how he's Darth Vader. It's how Ewan McGregor is Obi-Wan Kenobi, right? At least the new one, right? But to me, Bruce and Ash are so synonymous with one another that you can't split the two. Bruce has done so many other things, but it's like, oh yeah, it's Ash. It's Ash. Yeah. No one's talking about Bubba Hotep. What the hell? No, like we're talking about Ash Williams. That's the deal. He is the heart of these movies, obviously, but he's so damn good. He's so good in these flicks.
Yeah. You do see in the second one, not only is it tonally so much more comedic than the first one, but you really see like the personality of Sam Raimi as a director. You really see it come through for the first time in this film. And by the same token, you see Bruce Campbell as he truly was meant to be, where in the first one, he's just kind of a horror movie protagonist. He's just kind of a normal guy.
He's our final girl, dude.
Yeah. That did occur to me watching it this time too. He's basically the final girl of the first Evil Dead. This one, he shows up already. He's already a lunatic before anything crazy happens.
Yeah.
He's already a maniac. He's hamming it up. He's ready to christen this weird cabin they're at. He's like raising the eyebrows. Like he already shows up crazy, which there's none of in the first one. And I agree that the character of Ash, it is a performance, obviously, but it also is so much of the persona that Bruce Campbell has maintained through his whole career. Like, to recap, you just really, it's not, even with some of the other iconic horror characters, it's like there's so much of a performance there still that you could find maybe a different take with a different actor one day. But with Ash, I just don't think it's possible. I just think it's a prerequisite to be Bruce Campbell. It's why smartly they didn't do Ash in the 2013 one or the remake one.
Right. Plus, Ash doesn't fit in that story that they told. Ash doesn't fit until that's why they had to add him on to the end. That's like a little like oosh, like that whole little that tag at the end. But I think plus Bruce produced or co-produced or executive produced that movie. So
did Sam Raimi.
Right. So they definitely had their hands on it.
Yeah.
But with that story they told in the remake, Ash doesn't fit. Because it was about Jane Levy's character. Great, let's keep it that way. But that's why they made the show as well. So we want more Ash? All right, great. Then let's do Ash on the TV show. Which, I mean, damn. If I could have picked a whole show, we'd be talking about 30 episodes of television right now. But for the sake of time, I think Evil Dead 2 is a great way to echo the themes. And it's the same Ash. That for a while, that ain't the Ash that went to, what was it, 1390 AD? You know, that's not the same Ash. Like when I think of Ash versus Evil Dead, I think of Evil Dead 2 Ash, and where he's talk about campy as hell. Like this dude is ridiculous, but in all the best ways. Like hitting himself against walls and doors, and like it's not the opening, but one of the opening shots is my man running through the house with the spirit chasing him. This great shot where it's his fault, where I'm assuming it's the camera guy just following him, you know, and he's bursting through doors and he's doing the whole thing, and it's so good. Like it's like, who the hell can do that? I can't do that. I would love to see Leonardo DiCaprio do that shit. Like, because I love to see that, but it's only Bruce. It's
that kind of amazing. By the way, I loved watching that silent sequence there of Connor desperately trying to stop his cat from knocking down his Evil Dead poster.
Now he's getting in the couch. Waffles.
He's putting on a show. I'm so glad you brought that up, Chris, because I feel like we see shots and sequences like that's now you see that in modern. I don't see it all the time, but it's definitely something you see in modern films a lot, and you can kind of feel the chip on the shoulder when you see it over like, oh, we're gonna do this single take. It's gonna be this great, impressive shot. It's gonna go through this, and it's gonna turn the corner. You see it in this, and they're doing it on like a shoestring budget, where like they have a freaking camera bolted down to a plank of wood or whatever they had for that sequence, and they're just not only are they chasing him through the house, but yeah, they have like obstacles, things are falling down in their way. They're like he's running into stuff, and it's like nobody's tripping. And I don't know. I would love to know how many takes that took, because
right.
There nobody's falling down. Like everything is so well calculated. It looks amazing. There's that one towards the bridge where it goes in through like the car window, and it's like these guys were doing this for like relative peanuts. It was like they got more money for this than they did the first one. They got like $3 million, I think, $3.5 million.
In the first one, it shows too. It definitely shows.
And it's cool seeing like Sam Raimi like adopting his like director like trademarks, like with all the like whips and the like crazy like close-ups and everything. Like you see him becoming the Sam Raimi we know from like the Spider-Man movies and everything else, like Darkman, all that. Like you see his like personality coming through on this one. And you're like, oh, this is where it began. Because you don't see much of like his like trademarks in that first one. Like you wouldn't be able to really tell. I mean, we know it's Sam Raimi, but you wouldn't be able to tell. But when you watch the second one, it's so distinctly a Sam Raimi movie. It has like all his trademarks.
Totally. No, like I without obviously without Evil Dead, Sam Raimi is not who he is today. And like I know these movies didn't do too hot at the box office. They weren't the best. All three of them found their followings after the fact.
Yeah.
Like these fan bases grew. Obviously, people like us, we watched these movies at a young age, or for me, at the young age of 21 years old, or however old I was, 20 years old. And it's like, yo, these movies are great, and they're great entryways into the genre, and to tell us or to show us who Bruce Campbell is as an actor, how Sam Raimi makes a movie. Like, people know Sam Raimi from Spider-Man, and that's great, and I'm glad people do. But watch Evil Dead, and you'll see a lot of that same shit in Spider-Man, 100%. And especially that second one. I think Spider-Man 2 is where Sony was like, I guess you can have that Doc Ock like sequence, whatever the hell. But like, damn, that's one of the most, like, to me, one of the better scenes of that whole flick, because like, yo, it goes back to Sam Raimi's roots in horror or thriller, however you want to categorize him. So Sam Raimi made his voice in this. Again, the reason why I chose the second one, because of all the crazy shit that went on in this one. And it's to me, it's a better made movie, like in my eyes.
For sure.
And like Evil Dead, we had a lot of the like horror tropes, especially with what was going on in horror at the time. Like there was, when the first one came out, 83, 84. Am I too soon?
I think you're right, 84, because this one came out 87.
Mm-hmm.
Hold on, I'm gonna confirm for you right now.
81.
81.
Holy
I knew
God.
I knew 83 and 84 were too soon. I wanted to say 80, but it's 81.
Well, Jesus. Okay, 81. Well, look at the world of horror at that time, and I think it fit perfectly into that. A great, like, it's a staple of horror, especially in the early 80s, late 70s. Obviously, you feel the inspiration from late 70s horror flicks.
It's the original Cabin in the Woods movie.
Right. And when we get to Evil Dead 2, like, it doesn't follow like what Halloween was doing or what Friday the 13th or Nightmare on Elm Street. It was its own voice, and again, it sticks out from the bunch. And it, like, to me, it made the careers of Bruce Campbell and Sam Raimi. Like, did they do all these crazy ass things with the exception of Spider-Man? Probably not, but damn, they were successful, and damn, they made their footprint in the genre they were doing and where they were at. Everybody knows who Bruce Campbell is. I have a feeling. If you don't know him by name, you know his face. Sam Raimi, they're like, oh, it's the Spider-Man guy. Yeah, but he came from this. Yeah. And this was his platform to really like go crazy. Because if you hear about the production of the first two films, or especially the first film, it's chaotic. It's a mess. And my man's out here writing movies with the Coen brothers, and they're bombing. Think about that now. A Sam Raimi Coen brothers movie that makes thousands of dollars at the box office, not millions, thousands. That doesn't happen now. If that collaboration happens, and if Frances McDormand's in your cast, that doesn't happen now. You know what I mean? But Evil Dead as a franchise, it just has its own voice, and I love it.
I just learned also that Sam Raimi wrote this movie while living with the Coen brothers and Frances McDormand and Kathy Bates and Holly Hunter all in the same house.
Imagine that. I would pay to watch I'd pay to watch like that real world type of setup where they're all trying to make movies. They're like, oh man, we're trying to get our careers off the ground. Oh dang, I hope you make it one day, Frances McDormand. Oh dang, I hope you make it one day, Ethan and Joel Coen. Like that's some crazy shit. That's a one successful ass household. All of them.
I want to see like it's like one night in Miami, but it's one night in like one night in a shithole. Like it's
and they're writing Evil Dead, and it's freaking. They're all like they're foreshadowing their future careers. Like, dang, Frances McDormand's like, damn, if I want to make this this real like low budget movie that hopefully win me an Oscar one day in 1990. Like that'd be some real shit. These
Coen brothers were probably writing Blood Simple at this time too,
right? Or at least they had
some iconic movies coming out of this house.
There's a bunch of star power, like a lot of A-list actors and directors in that whole setup, and the fact that Evil Dead was really the first thing that blew up out of that, or one of the first things that blew up out of that was crazy as hell. Especially when you watch these things, you're like, damn, like these movies are a little bit dated. They're really campy. You can tell they're not like the production quality isn't the best, but damn, for 87, when you have $2 million for whatever, or in the first one, when you have peanuts and a Kit Kat, it looks pretty damn good. Damn good movie.
There's some like great shots in this, like when he goes to try to get out and the bridge is like blown up, and then the sky, it has that like cool like perspective shot with Bruce Campbell and the sky and the bridge. It's so cool. There's so much to love about the second one. Where the first one scares the shit out of me, but I do end up smiling a lot during that one. This one, it's just a grin on my face the whole time.
I think that's why I like it so much, because it doesn't scare me too much. There are a couple points where I'm like, like I was definitely jumping and stuff, but this one's way more digestible for someone who isn't too familiar or too fond of the horror franchise or of horror movies. It's a great entryway to do so. Don't get me wrong, the blood and effects in this movie are insane. They are nuts. And the fact that poor Bruce Campbell having to just take gallons and gallons of fake blood to the face, like, my God, I gotta take this thing off. My hands starting to sweat. But it's like the whole the tracking shots, the deadeye at the end of the film. Holy God! Like whether it was pulling Annie by the hair and it's spinning in the air, or when its neck pops out and it becomes like Beetlejuice. It's like, whoa! Like this is nuts, right? Like there's so many great shots, great scenes in this, and obviously. I think the performances or the performance by Bruce Campbell carries the whole movie, but even the supporting characters I didn't mind. It made sense why they were there. It's not like, oh dang, here we go, another crop of expendable bodies. Like they all had meaning to be there. And Bobby Joe, I put it in my notes. This is the most like ridiculous thing to put in my notes. I said Bobby Joe is a bad bitch.
Bobby Joe was based on Holly Hunter, I read.
Oh, there we go. That explains why she's a bad bitch.
Yeah. So, and Sam Raimi had wanted Holly Hunter to play Bobby Joe, and the studio said they wanted somebody more attractive. How are you going to do Holly like that?
How dare they?
How rude.
How dare they? Holly Hunter is a bad bitch. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise.
Yeah, no, it's, it is funny to think, too, for Ash. It's like, it's one hell of a day he had, because basically the implication is that
one day
the first movie, right, like some version of the first movie happened. He showed up, got there, his girlfriend died, he fought a bunch of demons, and he tried to escape. It didn't work. And then, a bunch of other people just also inexplicably show up a few hours later, and then he's gonna like handle everything they've got going on. And they got pages to the Necronomicon. He's like, oh Christ, like he can't leave. Like it just gets worse and worse and worse. And then as soon as that's over, he gets transported back to the Dark Ages. Like he's just having a hell of one day. And you just literally like watch him lose his mind, like just mentally disintegrate throughout the film. There's this is like the shot I always think of where it's like couldn't have been anybody else, but like where he's really starting to melt down and it comes in real close and he's like almost cross-eyed and he's like laughing it right directly into the camera. It's like nobody else could do what he's doing. And all of the like stunt work, like you'd mentioned, Chris, how much he's playing off of himself. I was watching kind of a behind the scenes making of thing today, and like the only stunt he really didn't do in the movie was when they throw him down in the cellar and he's like tumbling backwards over the steps. He'd like decided, okay, I probably shouldn't do that because I'm definitely going to get hurt and injured. But like all the stuff of him like going nuts with the possessed hand, like all this slapstick stuff.
Yo, when the hand was pulling him, great. I was cracking the hell up. I was cracking up.
Great visual comedy. He's like pulling himself and doing like a freaking judo flip in the kitchen. He's just blasting in the wall. Just like great like slapstick stuff, which I learned Sam Raimi is a huge fan of. Like he's a huge Three Stooges guy, and it's super apparent. And it's super apparent in Army of Darkness too, from what I recall. It's been a while since I've seen it, but there's lots of that. Lots of that. I mean, that's Sam Raimi gets all his roots in horror, but his ability as like a comedic filmmaker is super evident really early on, and you always feel that sensibility in his work, and you can always feel him looking for the humor in it, even when he's got something on paper that's so dark and so crazy. You mentioned like what horror is doing in the 80s. It's the rise of the slasher. It's really what's hot in that time, and it is going for something different. It's not a slasher, and it's there've been sort of demonic movies and devil movies and things like that. Obviously you had The Exorcist, coming out about a decade prior, and you have things like the Omen and movies like that. But this is like if you took the scene in The Exorcist of Reagan vomiting pea soup all over the room and then turned it into a 90-minute movie, like that's what Evil Dead is. If the whole movie was at that level the whole time, that's what Evil Dead is to me, I think. And this one's there's tons of scenes where liquid is blasting all over the room in this.
Yeah, and that's one of my. We mentioned the hand, the possessed hand scene. That is my favorite sequence of this movie. When his hand gets possessed, it's a big sequence. From getting possessed to chopping it off, and then when he's like being dragged across the floor with the hand. And then he just chainsaws it off. And then you got blood all over his face. He's laughing in the camera. The hand runs off, like flipping him off, like going into the wall. He's just blasting it. And then he thinks he got it. And then just like blood starts, like lots and lots of blood just blasting out of the wall.
Great.
Blowing it back. Like the whole sequence is so good. I love it.
And even how it starts, right? Like my man's just like he's like fighting off the hand the whole time. He's trying to like get him in the face. Like and I'm like, yo, Bruce is just going nuts. And I don't want to make this like the Bruce Campbell appreciation show, but it really this movie is solely dependent on the performance of Bruce Campbell and how committed he is. And like if he doesn't give a shit, then this movie doesn't work. And why are we here? We're probably here talking about Scooby-Doo Monsters Unleashed, but we're not. But like we're here talking about one day. And when y'all have me back, let's say in November, we'll float around. Ask me again in November. We'll see what happens. But in this movie, like it's Bruce and Sam Raimi just throwing things at the wall and seeing what kind of blood comes out. And depending on what color it is, right? Whether it's black or it's red or whatever the hell. But like the hand stuff, him going nuts, where like the deer head starts laughing at him, the lamp is laughing at him, and he starts laughing, and that iconic shot of him looking into the camera, laughing at himself, right into the camera. And again, to my point earlier, I think people get this movie confused with the first one. They think this is the first movie because that's the shot, right? Or him sawing off the hand, him getting the chainsaw in the hand. Like, those are the Evil Dead things. Like, when we think of Evil Dead, we think of Ash, the hand, and that shot with the blood all over his face. Mm-hmm. But it's the second one. It's like, this all happens in the second movie, and it's nuts. And it's only 80-some minutes long. It's digestible. You could pop the movie on. It's Bruce Campbell the whole time, just acting his ass off and throwing himself all over the place. But my God, this movie is just so much fun. And yeah, maybe the comedy is why I like it so much, because I obviously I'm not a horror fan, but I love comedy, and the perfect marriage of the two here is fantastic. Don't get me wrong. I was scared shitless, whether it was the Deadite Linda popping up and scaring Ash when he was looking out through the window, or if it was the other, I forget the guy's name, one of the professors that was with Annie, right? Is that her name, Annie or Anne? I forget. I think it's Annie.
It's Annie, yeah.
Okay, cool. So with Annie, and the guy like pops up, he's like, and I'm like, ah!
Chris, I had no idea you liked Evil Dead 2 so much. If you like Evil Dead 2 so much, you should check out Sam Raimi's other horror work, like Drag Me to Hell.
And see, that's
it's very Evil Dead-esque. It's got the same like
that's Justin Long,
campy,
right?
slapstick stuff, but it's got the same scares as Evil Dead.
Is that the Justin Long movie?
Yeah.
Okay, word. I haven't seen it. I haven't seen too much of Justin Long's filmography, as shocking as that might sound. Is it? But Evil Dead 2 has some great scares in it. Yeah, it's jump scares, but damn, they work. And there's not too many of them. There's only a few. But that last half hour where everything hits the fan, and it's just straight up a horror movie now, where there's deadites and Henrietta's in the cellar, and she's like, "Ooh, let me get this guy."
I'll swallow your soul. I'll swallow your soul. Dead by dawn. Dead by dawn.
It's fun, but damn, is it spooky. The sound mixing and the sound effects.
I love the one-liners in this. There's so many good one-liners, like the iconic one-liners that become synonymous with Evil Dead. Like, you've got like "swallow this." You've got Groovy, All Hail the King. Like, you have so much in this. Like, it's so good.
That's a great point. If you ever needed to like distill down how iconic this movie is and what it means for Sam Raimi and Bruce Campbell, you get your first Groovy in this. There's no Groovy in the first one. Mm-hmm. You know, and like that.
Where Ash
up on that
Ash.
chainsaw, very groovy.
Yeah, very groovy. Chris, you mentioned a scene that I still found really just genuinely creepy, which was Linda coming back out of the ground. You know, you kind of forget it because it comes in those first 10 minutes, and then like the rest of the movie begins, and you know that's where it feels like Evil Dead 2 really starts. But that scene of her coming out and them doing this like stop motion dance, it's very like sort of, it feels very kind of Tim Burton-y. You know, it's very animated looking.
Definitely Jack Skellington-esque.
Yeah, yes. It's very like sort of slender, but you know it's doing these moves that you really couldn't have, the twirl while the head stays stationary and looks at Ash. Yeah. It's like, okay, you probably had to animate it. Obviously it looks like an effect, and like obviously it doesn't look as smooth as it would if they did something similar today, but there's something about the way that they did it that holds up in a way that's creepy for me, you know, because it does look so surreal and so not of this world, which is what the Deadites are. You know, it's that thing of like looking at this, that you could never accept this as real because it looks so unreal, not in the sense that it looks fake, but that this could never happen. You know, that your dead girlfriend.
That's a good point, because a lot of people will see that and they're like, oh, that's like that's clearly fake. Like that's not good effects and everything. But, you know, for me, and I guess for you too, you know, I was just like, that is very creepy. Like, I didn't even think about like, oh, this is clearly an effect. I was just like, wow, this is actually creepy. Like,
and how long it goes on too. Like it's not brief, and they linger on, and it cuts back to Ash like, huh? And Linda or Deadeye Linda's just dancing around, the head spinning, and I'm like, what is like a striptease? But it's not. And like it's super weird. And then she disappears, and Ash is like, and then when the jump scare happens, and Chris over here on his bed is like, you know, like that's it's freaky. But I'm glad they like Linda is a recurring theme in this whole series. I feel like Ash doesn't go 2 seconds without thinking about Linda. Even in Ash versus Evil Dead, which happens like 30 years after the movies, he's still lamenting losing Linda and how much that meant to him as a character. And to your like Taylor, you mentioned it a little bit earlier, like Ash, like he wasn't Ash Williams in the first movie. Yeah, he was our final girl. He was the last person standing, but in the second one, he becomes the character we all know and love. He becomes the guy in that poster that Connor has in the back there. Yeah. Like where he fully embraces himself. And again, Taylor, you mentioned this earlier. It's where Bruce Campbell put on that persona that he is now, where like, he's sarcastic, snarky. People might think he's an asshole, but we're like, oh, he's so charming, isn't he? Like that's the performance. That's what it is right there. And I may not be the biggest fan of Army of Darkness, but damn it, Bruce Campbell still brings it. Like, and I know like Universal had their hands all over that son of a bitch, right? And like that poster doesn't even reflect how ridiculous the movie is. Like the movie is nuts. It's absolutely nuts. But Bruce Campbell and Ash, like it's the same guy, just plopped in the Dark Ages. And Ash versus Evil Dead's the same guy, just plopped 30 years later. My man looks like he's a dad now. And he's working at the value stop or the value shop, whatever it is, and he's out there just having that hand, like whatever that robotic hand. But that's the second film really made Ash the horror icon that he is. Like I think people sleep on Ash. Of course, when you think of horror movies, you think of Freddy Krueger, you think of your Michael Myers, your Jason Voorhees from the Friday the 13th movies, but I think Ash
when you think about like the heroes, like there's not a lot of heroes you think about. You think of Sidney Prescott, you think of
there you go. There aren't too many.
You think of Jamie Lee Curtis. You like there's only a couple that you can think of, and then there's Ash.
Mm-hmm. Ash may be the only male hero that like stood the test of time. Like, because obviously, like you just mentioned, oh my God, I'm blanking on Jamie Lee Curtis's name from Halloween, but
Laurie,
thank you, Laurie Strode, thank you. From like you think of Laurie, you think of Sidney Prescott from Scream, right? But Ash, like I would put Ash up there. Ash is like our Disney princess, right? Like he's the one that sticks out from the bunch, and like a lot of the men in horror are obviously the antagonists. But
the only other one I can think of is Officer Dewey.
Yeah, but as another one from Scream, right? And it's the same franchise. But outside of Scream and Laurie from Halloween, who the hell else do we got? And I know there are probably answers, and I know they exist. But when it comes to the top tier creme de la creme, when you think of horror icons that are the protagonists and the heroes of the story, the hero from the sky, right? When you think of that, you think of Ash Williams, and he is so underrated. People don't. I think Ash is so niche. Evil Dead is so niche as it is.
Yeah, Evil Dead's one of those ones where it's a good midnight movie, and like if you have a friend group, it's a great movie to put on and just ham it up with your friends. But it's not a movie that you can go up to someone and be like, "Hey, I have a movie that you are going to love." Like a lot of people are going to be like, "What the fuck am I watching?"
Right.
Because it is niche. It is,
especially as it goes.
And I mean, I think that's the charm of it, is that it's so like off kilter and so weird and just campy and just slapstick. But it's got great horror in it, and I just love this universe.
And Ash is so conflicted. He's grieving the entire movie. Like at no point is he like, all right, I gotta be this badass and kiss the girl at the end. He is relieved at the end that all this bullshit is over, still missing Linda. Linda's what pulls the Deadite out of him when Annie is like, hey, like I'm gonna get the axe now.
Mhm.
And the movie makes you think that Ash is bad now, and that Annie's gonna be the final girl, you know, that we typically see in horror, at least, especially at the time. But that's not the case at all. Annie does survive, thank God. But or at least she survives this movie. But then Ash comes back, and he's the guy. He's our final girl, and he's grieving. He's mourning because that's the girl he said, or that he told that he was going to be with for the rest of their lives, and she died, and he had to cut her head open in the shed. You know what I mean? Like, like that's what I'm. And he had to do that, you know, because the Deadites were doing their thing, and. And I don't know the makeup artists or the practical effects artists for this movie off the top of my head, but holy shit, the Deadite practical effects on the face. I don't know how this movie isn't on this type of pedestal like how Halloween is, especially with all the Bruce Campbell talk in the last 50-some minutes and the special effects. Like the visual and practical effects of this movie are really damn good, especially when you have when you have a movie where probably McDonald's was the catering, and you have this sole character in a box this whole time, and yet you still make me give a shit about this one guy, and the antagonists, the Deadites, are so well done, and like they're great villains.
Yeah, the Deadites are very scary with how they look. It's great practical effects. They're so creepy.
Like every single one of them, and they're all different too. Not one of them's the same.
Yeah, they get a big upgrade in this movie for sure.
Yeah.
And what I like about, you know, Deadites, you know, they have things in common with demons, with zombies, especially in the first one. Visually, they're kind of more zombies, but in this, they're their whole own interpretation. They're like, they have personality, and like you said, they don't all look the same. Like one's got a big, long, weird neck. You know, one's a big, rotting grandma.
Some of them fly, some of them don't.
When you get deeper into the lore, I mean, with Army of Darkness and even Ash versus Evil Dead, you realize there's really no rules to what the Deadites can do.
There are no rules.
Objects, they can multiply into smaller versions of yourself. Like, they can do whatever the fuck they want. They are Deadites, and they will do whatever they want. And they're always creepy.
And Ash vs. Evil Dead, that's when things get insane. The Deadites are absolutely nuts. And Connor, I'm so glad you mentioned it, because there are no rules. If they were to tell you, like, all right, this is how you become a Deadite, there's nothing on the paper. There's nothing on that piece of paper that tells you, because we see Ash become possessed by a Deadite more than once in these movies or in the whole franchise. But he's not dead. At no point is he dead. Yeah. But when we see other characters become Deadites, or in Ash vs. Evil Dead, we see Kelly, Pablo, Ruby, whoever the hell, like when they are becoming Deadites, they're not dead. But it's like, yo, why are they not dead? We don't know, and honestly, we shouldn't care. Like, because like who gives a hell? Who gives a shit? You know, like this whole franchise is weird as hell. Like we've said at the top, they redid the ending to the previous movie in the second and third one while rehashing and not redoing, but they alluded to the films a ton in the series.
Yeah.
So like it's so tongue in cheek. They're self-aware, and they know what they're doing. These movies know what they're doing.
It's one of those rare cases where there are no rules, and I don't care.
Right. That's a great point. That was something that struck me as kind of terrifying in the first one, watching it again, where it was like, oh, you could just inexplicably be taken by these things.
Yeah.
You know, it doesn't have the catharsis of a zombie movie. It's where it's like, okay, if you don't get bit, you're good to go. If you get bit, we got a problem. And that's the world we live in now. It's like, I don't know, might come through the window and just get you. And, you know, in a couple scenes, might not have you anymore. And then you might turn around, got you again. Like, it just seems right. Like there's obviously some sort of rules maybe the Deadites play by, because they don't just come in and kill Ash immediately, but we're never privy to what it is what plane they're operating on. We never
The
get
remake
that.
seems to like try to establish some kind of rule to it where it's if you have a weakness, like if you have a weak soul, then you're gonna be taken.
Right.
Mila is, a drug addict, so she's obviously the like a easy target for the Deadites, and then everybody else slowly loses their mind and become easier targets as well. Cutting off their arms, sawing their faces off. The remake's brilliant. A lot of people don't like it. I love the remake, reboot, whatever you want to call it.
It was a tad bit too scary for my taste, if I say so myself.
It's batshit insane.
It's nuts.
Very little comedy, if any at all. It's just straight up like terrifying. I love that movie. But it's Evil
Dead.
Dead.
That's Zoe from Zoe's Extraordinary Playlist. It's that girl. Yeah, she's nuts in that movie.
And another Sam Raimi produced movie, Don't Breathe.
Oh, I've seen Don't Breathe. I've seen that. Yeah, that's a really good one. That's a really good one. But
Sam
in
Raimi's
this,
just fantastic. Anytime I see that door close and then the skeleton come up through the keyhole, I'm like, oh, it's gonna be good.
The second film, I mean, Taylor, I would say this, right? To speak for Connor and myself, there are no rules to Evil Dead unless you're Ash Williams and you're never a Deadite for a long period of time. I think all the rules apply to everyone but Ash, because we see Ash get bit by the Linda head and he's out here hitting the head against trees and doors and walls and all these crazy things, and it's laughing at him the whole time. But once he deals with the Linda thing and the hand starts to fight back, like, yo, to a regular person, to me, if Linda bites me, I'm straight up like, I'm Deadite, right? Like, that's me. But if it's Ash, she's like, oh no, it's just my hand. I gotta cut this shit off, and I gotta be, badass right now, and chainsaw my hand off. Another iconic thing from this film, where it's like, yo, and I guarantee people are dismembering themselves in other films, but in this one, he did it. He willingly did it. He didn't have to, but he willingly did it. How he did it was awesome, and he's like, all right. Don't got to worry about bleeding out. I'm just going to put a sock over it, like how I did earlier. It's like, we're all good. And then it's like, oh, I bet. Like, you shouldn't think too hard about these Evil Dead movies. It's going to make you question the hell out of things, especially in Army of Darkness. But that's a whole different, Really Scared for a different day. But for Evil Dead 2, poor girl got an eye in the mouth. And and she got eaten by a tree. Like, it was like, what is going on in these movies? But like Evil Dead 2 is when things got crazy as hell, and this franchise became its campy self, and almost to a fault. It almost to a fault became like, yo, we know what we are. Like, let's turn it up to 10 and go fight and go to the Knights of the Round Table. Let's go let's go to the Dark Ages. It's like, well, damn, that's okay. Well, like, I'll take it. But this second movie to me is like the shit, and all these little things that we've been talking about, like, it's like, this is why I love this movie so much. It's ridiculous. You turn your brain off, but it's good. It's entertaining. It makes you think, but it's not like it's not, I don't know. It's not like Seven, where it's not making you think some type of deep psychological shit. You're watching a man deteriorate slowly but surely, and the Deadites are what are making this man lose his mind, because they're taking over moose heads or deer heads and trees. Evil Dead 2 tree scene was definitely less traumatizing than the first.
Yeah.
Yes.
I agree.
Yes.
I agree. Though Bobby Joe gets it in a big bad way in this movie.
Got the worst of the bunch. She did.
Also, what's up, Davis, man? Thanks for watching. Great to see you.
What's up, brother?
We had Davis on a couple weeks ago to do Tourist Trap, and it was a lot of fun.
Oh, what's up, Davis? Friend of the show.
Friend of the show. Great guy. Rewatching the first one, I keep going back and forth because I did just watch both of them this week. The first one, that tree scene, it's a lot. It's a lot. It's a lot. And I think
who's having the drag races?
That's me. That's me outside. That's me.
The tree scene of the first film is the one I would say.
That's what I do on Wednesdays when I'm not Really Scared.
I would say is potentially the part that ages the least well, is because watching again, I'm just like, Christ, we're really it's really indulgent. We're really holding on this moment for quite some
talking
time.
about the tree thing from the first movie?
The first one, yeah. And there's really
Lord, yeah.
There's no interpretation. There's like it's very blatantly showing you what's happening, and you got to live in that moment. This one
doesn't age well at all.
This one they walk it right up to the edge, and you think you know what they're gonna do, and instead of it becoming a sexual assault scene, they drag her through the woods and explode her against it. I guess there was a shot where she there's some stuff in this that never made in the final cut and is lost, but there's a shot of her exploding against the tree when she gets dragged.
Well, both Evil Dead and Evil Dead 2 were NC-17 and had to have a bunch of stuff cut.
Yeah. Interesting about this movie is there are so many different scenes where there's green blood and the blood geysers kind of pink, and then when he chainsaws the deadeye at the end, it's got purple blood. There was their attempt to avoid an X rating, because the first one had it, and it made it very hard to release. They intentionally told him, they're like, Sam, you gotta go for an R rating on this one, okay? They'll make our lives a lot easier. We give you a little extra money, but you gotta go R. He's like, no problem. What he shot was what he was thinking would be an R-rated movie. He was like, we'll change the blood in a couple scenes. Nope. Once again, X-rated movie. And the way they got around it this time, I don't know if you guys on the versions you watched at the end, did you have when they're showing the different studio logos and things, did you see one for Rosebud Releasing Company?
Yes. Yeah, that's one I got.
Which is a fake distribution company that Sam Raimi and the producer, I think, let me get his name here correct.
Robert Tappert?
What's his name? Because he had a huge part in this too. Gosh, now I can't find it. What is his name? Robert Tappert did do this too, but who's the guy I'm looking for? It starts with a D, and I can't find it now. Dino De Laurentiis. He secured financing for the film. They create this fake distribution company to get around submitting it to the MPAA, and they were able to release it as an unrated movie and get it in a lot of other theaters as the Top Thrill Dragster goes by.
They're missing me, bro. They're missing me. I'm telling you.
That little rose at the end, that little stop motion graphic that Sam Raimi actually shot that. It's all this little, and they still, I love that they still tag it on copies of the movie, because that is listed as
the one I bought. It has the Rosebud thing. I'm like, what the hell's Rosebud?
Yep. It's just their fake shell company, so they could just technically distribute the film unrated and get it in more theaters rather than go through MPAA. And because I guess they're beholden to submitting it and getting it, going through the proper channels with the with De Laurentiis' production company. So they came up with this whole scheme to get it out unrated. So that was they had some trouble in production and getting it out how they wanted. I guess also Army of Darkness was Raimi's original idea for what would be the second Evil Dead movie. When he came to them, they're like, no, do some more stuff in that cabin. We'll give you some more money, but let's keep it in the cabin. And so
rightfully so. I'm glad they did.
But the trajectory of these movies is so insane, where it's first movie, they're killing demons in a cabin. Next movie, killing demons in the same cabin. Next movie, they go to the medieval times and fight demons with knights in shining armor. Such a strange 3-movie story being told there.
Ash versus the Evil Dead trailer park.
Right. My man lives in the trailer. It's this makes this whole franchise is so weird, and I still can't. It's hard to explain to somebody. There's this guy goes up there with his girlfriend and their friends, and then demons pop up, and all them get killed, but he has to kill his girlfriend, and then he's going through all this psychological terror because of the same demons, and then he goes to the Dark Ages, and then 30 years later he's working at the dollar store with his friend Pablo, and Deadites are back. It's what the hell?
Because he gets drunk and then opens up the Necronomicon again and drunkenly reads the passages and unleashes hell on Earth.
Yep, and then Xena, Warrior Princess, shows up. It's what the hell is going on here? It's Evil Dead's such a weird franchise, and it stems from this movie. Evil Dead 2 is the conductor to this whole crazy ass train that Evil Dead is. And I mean, the first film, it stands great on its own. In the grand scheme of things, Evil Dead 2 kind of tells it yo, that's all you need to know, right? Ash rides motorcycles and he drives by Chris's apartment. But besides that, he just laments the loss of his girlfriend, and that's really it. But if you watch the Evil Dead on its own, it's a solid horror flick, low budget horror flick, right? But then when you get to Evil Dead 2, it's like, what the hell is all this crazy ass, campy ass? Like this is a like a character. Like you're just unraveling the layers of this guy who's going nuts, the cool guy, the jock of the school, the high school, or he was like 20 when he shot this. So he's the cool guy of the town, whatever the hell. And then he loses all of his friends and his girlfriend, and then you send him back to King Arthur. It's like, what is going on? But that's the charm of this franchise, and that's again why I love Evil Dead 2 so much. This movie's ridiculous. It's ridiculous, but in all the best ways, because it knows it's ridiculous, and like all the blood shooting out the walls, and these swallow your soul. Like Dead by Dawn, like it's like, yo, all that stuff, like it knows what it is, like, and I love it so much. It's so much fun to watch, and it's so easy. It's hour 25. Like pop on the sun, like what Connor said earlier. I think it's the perfect way to watch this movie. If you're not just having on as background noise, like doing whatever you're doing, like how I did earlier. Like watching it with a group of friends who haven't seen this movie before with some adult beverages is the way to go. Like that's how you should watch Evil Dead 2, and maybe even Army of Darkness. But the first Evil Dead, if you want some screams, you want some good, you want some quality
that's
horror.
How you should do the whole entire franchise, 1 through 2013. Get a bunch of friends, have some drinks. By the time you get to Army of Darkness,
is that WatCon?
You're belligerent. What?
Is that WatCon?
Yeah, absolutely.
Chris, I thought you were about to say, is that the next watch along?
No.
Including Ash versus Evil Dead.
Yeah, we have to watch all like 15, 16 hours of Ash Evil Dead.
That's like a 48-hour stream.
I mean, we can make it work. But we can make a walk kind of thing. But Evil Dead 2, and I know there are a bunch of things that we haven't mentioned, right? But this movie. It's so crucial to, I think it's why I like horror movies so much. Like there's two to me, and I chose the one that was just probably more unconventional, because I mean, it's no secret, I've talked about this on this channel before, and I guarantee Connor has, but Scream, to me, that's my favorite horror movie. I love Scream so much.
We know I love Scream.
But Evil Dead 2 is right up there for me. And they're two completely different movies that came out not too far from one another. What's like a decade apart from each other? 8 years. So like these two movies, right? Like they are my taste of horror. Like they're self-aware, they know what they are. They're commentary, like more on Scream, like a commentary horror at the time. But Evil Dead just sticks out from the bunch. Like from all these movies that we're talking about, all these bigger franchises, Evil Dead sticks out. And to me, Evil Dead 2 sticks out from everything else. Whether it is Bruce or the great visual effects that are absolutely ridiculous. Whether, like, I popped earlier, like, again, when I watched this movie last week in preparation for this, I popped seeing the Oldsmobile again. And for those who don't know, I had an audible reaction to seeing the Oldsmobile. I'm like, oh hey, like yo, because like Ash, like the chainsaw and the gun, but the Oldsmobile is right there. That's his Batmobile right there. But like this franchise is so slept on and underrated still all these years later. But Evil Dead 2 is so dope. It's so much fun to watch. Like it's so much fun. And I looked at my notes again. And I put LMAO chainsaw in regards to when the chainsaw first showed up again in this movie, where like he tries to saw Deadite Linda's head off, and he pulls back the curtain. It's the outline of the chainsaw. He's like, "Where's the chainsaw?" And then Deadite Linda's body comes in. It's the chainsaw. It's like, what the hell is? I cracked the hell up watching that scene. And it's ridiculous because once it gets lodged in the neck of the Deadite it just keeps hitting Ash. Right? Like, it's so funny. But it's like, yo, my man's about to get chainsawed in the face, but I'm cracking the hell up because this movie's so damn funny. Like, that scene is great.
It's again that thing of when you think of what Bruce Campbell's having to do in that scene, and there was like an hour and a half behind the scenes documentary on this entire movie just sitting on YouTube. Is what I put on while I was working today. It's like longer than the movie is. But when you think of like what they're having to do in that scene, it's like Bruce again. No one else is really in the scene, and he's got this gigantic naked like cadaver with a chainsaw lodged in it being thrown at him, pushed at him. He's having to like scream, and he's like tripping and falling into stuff, and he's like getting it off of him. And like that was the energy that Sam Raimi kept. Like Sam just knew like, oh, I can fuck with Bruce Campbell. I can mess with him, and that's going to be where we get our best takes from. Mm-hmm. So like you know, he's getting tired. He's getting cranky. He's dirty. He's had it, and he's like, nah. That's what the story I kept hearing was Sam Raimi would keep like coming to people on the set, be like, nah, it's all right, shake it off. You know, you're fine. Like that. Like he would just toy with people that way, not a way that was malicious or cruel. It sounds like, but just like in a very sort of, you know, mischievous, like, you know, he has that sensibility. He's very much. He's got that devilish little humor, and it seems like ultimately he runs like a really fun set. Like he keeps really high morale. Like there's no real horror stories coming out of Sam Raimi productions.
Oh, never.
Despite how crazy they are. I mean, this one they like build this cabin set in like a gym in a high school in like North Carolina, and there's like a heat wave, and we haven't talked too much about Henrietta yet, I don't think. And Henrietta is like, so Henrietta, you know, the big, you know, decaying old woman that comes out of the cellar, which also I popped, like you said, Chris, just seeing that cellar door, you know, that's the iconic. Right. That's what comes back big time in the remake. Mm-hmm. When Jane Levy's
God,
Jane Levy's the one down there, which is a neat little hook.
And they turn up the horror on that iconic shot. They're like, we're gonna take that, but we're gonna make it fucking terrifying.
That movie is terrifying. That's talk about Evil Dead. That movie, it may be titled Evil Dead and may have similar plot lines and themes and settings of Evil Dead.
It's got a lot from the original Evil Dead trilogy. You've got the necklace, you've got the book, the Oldsmobile, the chainsaw.
Like they take a lot from the original, but damn that y'all, and I hopefully I will see y'all cover Reely Scared, that remake, one of these days, because I think Fede Alvarez did one hell of a job with that remake. Like it got me. Granted, it doesn't take too much to get me, but I was shaking in my boots that whole damn time. But in the second one, or in Evil Dead 2, Henrietta scares the out of me. She's like funny as hell, hysterical, but terrifying all at the same time.
Yeah, Henrietta rules. I think kind of the Deadite that leaves the most of an impression on you, which is saying a lot considering what all you see in this movie. You see like a freaking demon pterodactyl at the end. An entire tree comes to life and tries to eat. You know,
the pumpkin face in the door. It's like, wow.
but that one has the distinction of coming out of the cellar, which already just puts it is really putting it on a certain level when it comes to Evil Dead. Mm-hmm. But has like this weird charisma and humor to it, which Henrietta, played by Sam Raimi's brother, Ted. That's all him in there.
Love Ted Raimi. Appreciate this show appreciates the hell out of Ted Raimi.
You should, because apparently of all the people on this set, Ted was having the worst time of anybody, in a big bad way. Like I mentioned a heat wave earlier. I didn't make that up. It was super hot, and when you think of Ted, he's a walking special effect as Henrietta. He's just covered in layers of makeup, prosthetics. He's just this, bulbous, rotting woman, and all the heat would get trapped in that suit, and he'd sweat and sweat and sweat, and it didn't have anywhere to go. And literally, I saw shots of this like in the documentary. They would have to have to take a break here and there to drain his suit of sweat, where they would like open up the sleeve and it would come pouring out, and they'd have to like catch it in cups. They said liters of sweat would come out of this Henrietta suit. Like they would have to stop because he was so miserable, because you can't get him out of that. It's like it's like once he's in there, you got to keep him in until you wrap for the day. And there's a scene in the film, I dialed it back just to be sure, when Henrietta's like flying and she's over, I think, Annie's head. There's a scene where she like turns her head, and you just see all this sweat pour out of Henrietta's ear, like a visual stream. You can see it, and it works because you're like, oh, it's this gross like demon zombie that's flying through the air, but it's his actual sweat. They kept that take in, and it's so gross. It's like a ton of it comes out of her ear.
Gross.
It's so gross. It's so gross. They would have to catch it in cups. Ted was having
watch that.
It's just on. If you just YouTube Evil Dead 2, I forget exactly what it's called. It's probably off of a DVD or something, special feature, but 90-minute long documentary. I have tons of fascinating stuff in that. But yeah, that was like the most interesting story, I think, to me, just because you get visual evidence of it in the movie. They left it in. So Ted's the big hero. What a brother. I think he might have even helped write the film too. So like, obviously Sam Raimi's, the director, it's his vision, but like, we got to give Ted some credit too, because he's got a lot invested. He's literally put his heart and soul to this thing. He left some of him there on the set that day that he'll never get back.
And I didn't know who Ted Raimi was until I started watching the TV show. Because, spoiler alert, he does a lot of that same shit in the show.
Oh, really? So I haven't seen the show at all yet.
Taylor,
the show's great.
I highly recommend watching the show. It was ripped away from us too soon, in my opinion. Granted, it went 3 seasons, but it was another one of those shows that we'll never see the ending properly, but especially since Bruce Campbell's like, yeah, I'm done with Ash for now.
Is he though? Because there's a 4th one coming.
He's a liar. Like I think he's working me, bro.
Yeah, the 4th one is shooting in New Zealand.
Wait, really? I've not heard about this at all. There's a new Evil Dead movie in production?
Supposedly, like Ash
Evil
is
Dead
in
Rises. We talked about this on the.
Oh shoot! Wow, I totally forgot. You're right. We talked about this for like weeks last year.
Yeah,
I think Bruce is like, he's a producer, executive producer on it, so he's involved. But like he's said before that like he's done with Ash. He's not Ash anymore.
He's going to be in this one because it's a proper sequel to the original. It's Evil Dead 4.
Right.
It's Evil Dead Rises. Like, I guarantee he's going to be in this movie.
You're right. Yeah. Okay, now it's all coming back to me. He kept insisting that he was like producing it, but not going to be in it. Yeah. I mean, why? I mean, they proved you could do some version of this with the remake that doesn't happen.
Yeah. I mean, they said it's going to focus on heroine character for this one, like a female protagonist, but I mean, if you're doing a continuation of the original Evil Dead, chances are we're going to see Ash.
Look, if like Halloween's going to bring Jamie Lee Curtis back in, and Terminator does, Linda Hamilton.
Arnold comes back every single time.
You got to bring it, at the very least, because if that one works, they're always looking to franchise the hell out of these things. You got to, at the very least, have him come back to pass off the chainsaw. Like, you can't just have somebody show up and get it. No one's ever, they got to earn it. No one's ever going to, relent that. You got to have Ash show up and kind of give that seal of approval, that moment in the film.
Yeah,
and you just want to see more of them, I remember. I'm starting to remember. They said it's going to like all take place on like a building in the city or something. Yeah, so it's going to be the Evil Dead takes Manhattan or whatever.
It's going to be like a high rise.
Right.
It would be like, what was it, the Belko experiment? It would be like one of those.
Yeah. If you do another one, you got to bring Bruce in. Maybe I'm wrong. I forget everything about this. Apparently, did they say who's directing this yet, Connor, or no? I'm sure they did. Didn't they?
It's yes, they did. Sam Raimi is obviously producing with Bruce Campbell. It's going to be directed by Lee Cronin, who directed Hole in the Ground.
That's it. Yeah,
and he was handpicked by Raimi himself.
Oh, how about that?
So when Raimi was coming up with it, he was like, I want that guy.
Word.
Wow. We did talk about that for weeks on the show.
Yeah, we did.
We covered every time they said anything about that movie, they covered it, and I just totally.
Because it had like a name change from like Evil Dead something, Evil Dead Return to Evil Dead Rises.
That's right.
That's better.
Yeah.
Like something from this. To go back to Evil Dead 2 for a second. Something from this movie that I think I mentioned this earlier, but I want to spotlight this because I think when I was watching this movie again, I'm like, yo, Chris, you came here to see this shit. That's friendship. Wait, that's it. Yeah, I picked this movie. Like, like this is my shit, George. Like I love
okay, George. We see you, George. Don't you worry.
Yeah, like
we'll get you in the hot seat soon. Don't you worry.
I'll pay top dollar to see George on Really Scared talking about his horror movie of choice. I mean, he's probably gonna pick like Night of the Living Dead or something. Like some type of horror classic. It's probably still in black and white, right, George? But I think the sound mixing or sound editing in this movie also should be emphasized. Like watch, and I hate to be that guy. Like when we talk about movies, and I don't know if you guys do the same thing. Like, but when you talk about movies with your friends or your family, and they're not like the biggest movie people, or they're not like cinephiles or anything, you're just like, yo, the score was so good. Like when you talk about the little things from a film, oh, that shot was really well done. My mom doesn't give a shit about the score of a movie. She don't care. But when I tell you guys, like, yo, have y'all seen the score for this movie? You're like, yeah. Y'all get excited for it. To me, Evil Dead 2, there's not really a score. It's not like it's sound effects and silence.
Yeah.
Like a Quiet Place, right? Or Don't Breathe, right? Where you emphasize the importance of silence. But when a door opens and it creaks, or when a 2x4 slams against a window pane, or when glass shatters or someone hits the floor, it's loud and it makes a difference. Or when deadites pop out of cellars, like it all makes a difference. And the last half hour, I made sure to emphasize it. I'm like, yo, the sounds in this movie are freaking me out. Not the sound or not the score, like the Foley or whatever hell it was that they did after the fact. And it's so well done, and it's talk about scary, bruh. Like I said, like early, like this movie's totally a thriller. This is not a horror movie first. It's a horror movie second, and the sound effects in this thing definitely make it seem like it is, with the jump scares and with the whatever the hell wood hits. It's wood hitting wood at the end of the day, but with how it's placed and where it's set up within the film, I'm over here like I'm jumping.
And the wind too, like the gusting wind is so like just so scary at the end.
Right.
Even what they're doing visually, this is by no means would I ever say this is a subtle movie, or any of the Evil Dead movies are subtle. But when you think of like that iconic camera movement, again, it comes back in all of Sam Raimi's movies, even Spider-Man stuff. But those, that POV shot where what they're actually doing is like putting a camera on a bike and riding a bike through the woods. But the execution of it is so great. It's really creepy. Like you get those POV. They're in the first one too. You get those POV shots where they're so fast and the movement seems so unnatural, and you never see what it actually is that's chasing people. It's like knocking down trees, and it's like spreading debris. It's so effective. And when it comes to the production end of it, it's like they threw a camera on a bike, rode the bike through the woods, and they sped it up in post production. But it looks amazing. Like, and they're all those little charming tricks where it's like people are figuring these things out for the first time. Like Sam Raimi's figuring out those tricks for the first time, and then it becomes like part of the film student Bible, right? Like he's writing the text, the sacred text, or the Necronomicon of like how to make movies on a shoestring budget, and it's very charming in that way too. What they're figuring out how they're doing these effects and making you feel the way that you do, and being able to go from horror movie scene to hilarious slapstick comedy on a dime is great. It really is distinct in that way. It's like no one else does it like this. And if anybody else tried, you'd be able to pick it out in a second. You're like, this ain't Evil Dead. Nice try, you know?
Right. And I don't want to sound like I know what I'm talking about in regards to horror movies. So like I want to ask you guys, like typically, isn't it like the smaller the budget, like almost, I don't want to say better the movie, but odds are it's going to be this, like, especially at the, like in the 80s and 90s, I know we got like the Blair Witches of the world and the Evil Deads, or now the Paranormal Activities, like in the 2010s and stuff, or late 2000s. But isn't like smaller the budget, almost more freeing it is as a filmmaker to make something like this, and especially with you guys making movies before.
I think with horror, the smaller, I think horror lends itself to a smaller budget, because I mean, you have to get more creative with how you present scares, and you often come up with cooler things, more creative ways to scare people, and that tends to work better than CGI when you get like a 40-50 million budget. I mean, it just works better with practical effects, which usually come with a smaller budget. But that's not to say, you know, a big budget horror movie can't be scary. I mean, look at the Conjuring movies. Those are big budget horror movies and they work. Those two movies
like
were
Sinister. Didn't Sinister have a lot of money behind it?
Lower. I think that was like mid-20s, but still, yeah.
Maybe I always go back to Sinister. Like, talk about a movie that scared the shit out of me. I think that's the scariest movie I've ever seen. I think, to me, like, Sinister is terrifying.
It is.
And that's Scott Derrickson, right?
Yeah.
He did that? Like, that, my God. Like, when that movie's never again.
I think that was, didn't last year's, like, somehow they did a study where they decided, like, scientifically Sinister is the scariest movie ever made. Like, they were somehow able to, like, deduce that and put it down to a theory.
Well, it's one of those movies where there's no blood, no cursing, no sex or nudity, and it receives an R rating because it's just so scary.
Too scary.
It's
rated R for terror and disturbing images. That's what it's rated R for.
Maybe one day we can do a watch along. We can watch Sinister.
Oh boy.
Maybe. Because I know some people on this channel like to take my word for it. But if like maybe Halloween, give me some time to prepare for it, and then we can revisit this conversation. So Matt, if you're watching, maybe we can do Sinister. Chris watches Sinister on the channel and cries the whole time. Maybe we can do that. But I think to me, when I typically think of horror, I think of the smaller budget movies, and Evil Dead comes up to me. Like Paranormal Activity, obviously famously is like that, where people, they made it off of like $20 and the literal shoestring, and it's like, oh hey, like this movie made millions of dollars, fantastic, let's make 7 more. And we're like, wait a minute, like this is a lot. But at the same time, those movies don't cost too much to make. And I mean, we saw what happened with Blair Witch. That movie scared the hell out of everybody before the movie even came out. So I think Evil Dead, right, it lends itself to a smaller budget. And I think the franchise is better when it's more restrained in regards to what it can do. And all the money in this movie goes to the blood and the visual effects. That's all that, like, there's not these big action set pieces. You're not leaving the cabin. The whole movie is in the cabin. You rarely leave the cabin except in like the beginning when Bobby Joe leaves and that's it. And when Bruce goes to the shed, but I still count that the cabin. So like this movie primarily takes place within that box, like I mentioned earlier. And it's so well done. And yeah, there was some more money behind it than the first one, but it probably went towards those gallons of blood that were shot in people's faces, or when Henrietta pulled that poor guy back into the cellar and blood started shooting in Annie's face. And like, that is insane. Yeah. That whole thing was nuts too, because it felt endless. It felt like it was going to go on forever. But damn, like I think that the lower the budget, the better the horror movie in my eyes, because you get to be more creative, like what Connor said. You get to be more creative with what you do.
Yeah.
And Evil Dead, talk about creative, because this isn't an adaptation. This is just Sam Raimi like, yo, hey Ethan, what do you think about this? And it's like, yeah, like that's what the movie came down to be.
Yeah.
Or the series came down to be.
What I think is so special about Evil Dead, you know, the franchise, especially the first two, is any like aspiring filmmaker can look at that and be like a young filmmaker or someone who wants to get into filmmaking can look at those movies and be like, oh, I can make a horror movie for nothing.
Right.
And I can make it, effective. And I think the first two Evil Dead movies kind of prove that, especially the first one, because that was made for like nothing. But it shows you can do it if you just do it.
No, and the second one is, like I said, they got a little bit of a higher budget, of course, because they got more money behind it, especially after the success of the first one and the cosigns the first one got that were desperate to the whole franchise. But like to your point in regards to influence, like I said earlier, the horror and the comedy in this movie it's such a great marriage, and they know what they are. And I mean, damn, I think you see a lot of Evil Dead, not only in Sam Raimi assigned work, but in other, like in the whole franchise. Like you see Sam Raimi stuff as Taylor's going to 1390 AD over there.
Jesus.
Oh man, Taylor, my man's in holy God, you really went through a portal, Taylor. Okay.
Oh, he's not even popping up.
Oh, you're black
no.
now. Oh my Lord. Yeah, Taylor, like it's okay, Bubba. We can buy you some time. Yeah, Taylor, just reboot your stuff, dude. That's great. See, like, and to think that Sam Raimi made a movie with like the budget of like our setups combined. You know what I mean? Like that. That's the craziest thing, right? And Evil Dead 2, it sticks out to me. It sticks out from the rest of the franchise. And maybe it's because it's the first time the franchise really got to spread its wings and be what it wanted to be. Because imagine if the Evil Dead was this. Like, imagine how weird that would be. It's like, yo, what the hell is going on here?
I will say this: if Evil Dead never existed, I don't think I would have the love for horror that I do have. Evil Dead was like the one that was like, I want to make horror movies. I love horror. Mm-hmm. Evil Dead. Like, yeah. I wanted to make
your soul,
horror movies because of Evil Dead. Because I saw it and I was like, I could do that.
Right.
I could put a bunch of people in a cabin and throw blood on them and put weird shit on people's faces and make them demons. Like, I can do that.
Mm-hmm.
Like, Evil Dead is that for me. Like, that's where all my appreciation comes from. It's just so iconic.
And I'm not going to act like I know the history of horror cinema, and I'm not going to act like I don't know if Evil Dead originated a lot of these things. And I know Sam Raimi had to get his influence.
It originated the Cabin in the Woods movie.
Right.
That is the original Cabin in the Woods horror movie.
And
there's no Cabin in the Woods movie, like the 2010 movie. There would be none of that if Evil Dead didn't exist. You even have like name drops of Deadites.
And folks love that movie. Cabin in the Woods.
Fantastic.
I've only seen it the one time, and I'm like, yo, this movie, talk about meta. Like, and a movie that knows what it is. Like, Cabin in the Woods, not only is it the namesake is what the movie was influenced by, or is what Evil Dead made its name off of, but like the comedy, how meta it is, how self-aware they are as a group, whether it's it's the leads on top that are a part of the game or on bottom, knowing the whole world behind everything. And there are some fun nods to that movie or to Evil Dead, not only with the shots of the cabin, but I think on the board of things it says Deadites and angry molesting tree.
I didn't see that, but
I take that verbatim from Cabin in the Woods. I got that from when I was doing some research on this movie. A Cabin in the Woods came up, and angry molesting tree was one of the things that came up. Again, verbatim from the film. But Evil Dead, obviously, like it's again, like it's not as this whole franchise.
You're gonna have to find the Necronomicon in the 1300s, and you're gonna have to find a way back, buddy.
You gotta come back, Bubba, with your boomstick. But the whole franchise is iconic to me. But the first two are they had completely different visions, and they feel different. Like Taylor, I had a little back-to-back ski of the first and second one. The first one, I'm like, whoa, I'm shaking in my boots. Like, it's fun, but it's not the same fun I had in Evil Dead 2. Like Evil Dead 2, it's the Chris movie if Chris liked horror movies like that. Like, I like some horror flicks, but I don't like the whole genre just because it's not my cup of tea. But damn it, if you tell me right now, like, Chris, you want to watch Evil Dead 2? Hell yeah, let's watch Evil Dead 2. Like, I can rock with that. I can rock with the Evil Dead 2. Like, it's the performances, it's the whole production. Knowing that they didn't have too much to work with also it also really helps me think like, yo, they had maybe like $1 million, which I know sounds like a lot of money, but to make a movie, like especially now, that goes by quick. So like I guarantee, like Connor, if I gave you $1 million to make a movie, like it's like now it may be like, well, damn, like that may not. Like that, it's of course it's a lot of money, but to make a whole ass feature, sometimes you need more than that. But $1 million in 1986 or 1985, whenever they shot this thing, holy hell! Like that goes a long way.
Yeah.
So Evil Dead 2, like I love this movie, and when y'all told me about this, the whole concept of what Reely Scared was going to be for this year. This season 2 of Reely Scared, I'm like, well, what movie can I talk about that can that I will obviously be there to talk about it in length, that I can be passionate about, and that I can talk about for an extended period of time. And of course, Scream was the first one that came into my brain. But I'm like, you know what? I don't want to pick Scream. Like, let me pick something else. And Evil Dead 2 was the one that stuck out to me. And if it wasn't Evil Dead 2, I would have picked the first one as well. But maybe one day someone will pick it and y'all can really just dive into the first one. Yeah. Because that it's a whole different movie. It's a whole different movie. And talking about sticking out from the rest of the franchise, the Evil Dead does not feel like the rest of the franchise at all.
Very true. Yeah.
At all. Like it's a whole different, and you can look at it by itself and analyze it on its own, and it'd be a whole different conversation than the one we just had. And I mean, that's the beauty of you guys' show, right? Like y'all get to do these things, have people pick a movie and come and do whatever they want, or to have the conversation go wherever it goes. But like Evil Dead 2 to me is one of my favorite horror movies of all time. But damn, it's so much fun to watch. And it doesn't make me
Here's
think.
The thing that I tweeted this out, and it was met with a little bit of criticism. In my eyes, there's not a single bad Evil Dead entry in the universe.
No, I don't think so either.
The first one to Ash versus Evil Dead. In my eyes, they're all perfect. So I got to know. I'm not sure if Taylor's coming back. We'll see. But I think we're winding down.
Okay.
How many chainsaws are you going to give Evil Dead 2?
Oh man, how many chainsaws? Oh geez. I'm not going to act like this movie's perfect, but to me, it's pretty damn enjoyable, and it's really damn good. Like Bruce Campbell carries this movie on his back. This is when Sam Raimi got to be the filmmaker he wanted to be. The effects are great. The Deadites are great antagonists. I again, this is maybe my bias, and my letterbox will probably feel for it later when I put this in. I'm gonna give this a 5 out of 5 chainsaws. Like I gotta. I just talked about this movie for an hour and 40 minutes. I better love this movie.
I'm with you. 5 out of 5 chainsaws.
I mean, damn. Like when did we say something bad about this movie in the last hour 40? When? Exactly. So how can I yuck on something that like I can spend almost 2 hours talking about? And don't get me wrong, is Evil Dead 2 in like my top 10 favorite movies of all time? Probably not. But that's how much I love it still. It's like, yo, this movie's pretty damn good. Especially for a genre I'm not the biggest fan of. It made me, yo.
How we looking? Like 180p, 240?
You're looking at Chris 480.
Yeah.
720 maybe.
we can. You're looking good. You're looking good, Taylor. Per usual.
That was an interesting phenomenon from this side, is all I'll say. That was
terrifying.
I can't wait to watch it back and see how it looked from that side, but it was very weird from this side as well.
I mean, you're reading some. You were like, I think Connor and I said the words from the Necronomicon, and you were just like bugging out, and it was this whole thing. You sounded like Arnold from Terminator Genesis, not Dark Fate. Genesis.
What does that mean?
You did sound like the Peanuts parents. Like that was some real shit. But Connor and I were saying we both give this movie a crisp 5 out of 5 chainsaws. Like it's a love for this film that at least for me, for a genre I'm not the biggest fan of. But damn it, it's good. Like, and it makes me get out of my comfort zone for the hour 25 that it does, and I enjoy every minute of it. At no point did I regret watching this movie at any point when I did. Like, Evil Dead 2 is the shit to me.
It's as good as it gets for like your 80s horror, you know. I'd be inclined to agree. Like, I don't even know what criticism could I wager for Evil Dead 2. I couldn't even come up with one if I had to, right? Like, it's so unique. It's such its own thing. You know, it creates a standard and a tone that other filmmakers and characters and ideas you spawn from. But it's the perfect marriage of 80s, like hard, like what, you know, last week we talked about Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein, which is also the elements of horror and comedy meeting. But, you know, 80s horror, I think is a lot. It's different, you know, because it is so gruesome and you know, it's a lot more intense than, you know, 30s, 40s Universal monster movies. So,
right.
You know, how do you make that funny without betraying the horror of it? And he just figured it out. He nailed it. You know, this one is funnier than the last one, and then the next one's like just full blown comedy, high concept comedy, but he nails it. And as far as franchises go, you know, this one never really has that, oh, the wheels fell off moment. You know, you get these 3 movies, takes a really, really long break, remake, and then a TV show. Like, it doesn't make, there's not 11 Evil Deads, right? Like,
thank God.
Yeah. So they never really run it into the ground. And even if they had kept making them, you get the sense that it would have been really hard to do that, because the next one is he goes to the Dark Ages and fights Deadites and, you know, with knights in shining armor. It's like, well, that was a different trip from what we were doing previously, you know? Mm-hmm. So they could have made tons more, I'm sure, if that's what Sam Raimi was interested in doing. They are going to make a new one, and I'm excited to see what it is. But this is, you know, this is it. This is just a perfect staple of the horror canon, and there's a reason it is such a cult classic, and people flock to it and talk about it on podcasts to this day. This is, you know, I was surprised that it had kind of taken us, you know, we've been doing this format for a couple months, and it feels like, you know, we hadn't really got to one of those big horror series yet, you know, which was surprising to me. But I'm glad that if we were going to do that, I feel like Evil Dead even still was not the one you would expect it to do, and especially not the one at least except for, is Waffles destroying something? You're making a strange face there. Or am I going into the wormhole again?
No, he was staring straight into the camera, and his eyes looked so demonic.
I didn't see it. Maybe the nameplate covered it.
This cat.
Waffles is.
But to your point, Taylor, like this, I think a testament to Sam Raimi. Hello, Sam Raimi. I haven't heard that in years.
What was that? Did somebody?
Doorbell.
I was gonna say, did we just get like a donation? What was that?
Right, that scared the talk about scary shit. That scared the hell out of me. It's 8:50. Who's ringing my doorbell?
Ooh.
But right, it's a deadite. I'll let you guys know how it goes later. But the Evil Dead franchise, it keeps refreshing itself. I know like each entry feels different, whether Sam Raimi directed it or not. Like this, I think that Evil Dead. It's so weird because you know what you're expecting out of Michael Myers. You know what you're expecting out of Jason Voorhees. You know what you're expecting out of Freddy Krueger, out of Jesus Christ, out of
get that DoorDash order.
I didn't even order anything. But like you know what you're expecting, right? But with Evil Dead, you don't really you don't know what you don't know what you're getting, and I kind of like that. And it's another testament to the charm of this whole franchise. Not even just the second one; it's the whole thing. And y'all can have different conversations about each of those films, and it'd be completely different than the hour 45 that we're doing now. And it's nuts. And it's again testament to Sam Raimi.
We talked about this, you and me, Chris. But it's no secret that I love Evil Dead. But all of them are just perfect in my eyes. Like I've given them all 5 stars. They're all 5 stars. They're all perfect in my eyes. There's not one I prefer more than the other. Like I would not be able to do a bracket of all of the Evil Dead films in the series. I would not be able to do a bracket. There's no way. They're just all so good. But I was waiting for someone to pick Evil Dead, like any of them. And when you picked it, I was like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
Chris is the one that picked Evil Dead?
I'm a bag of surprises, dude.
Yeah.
I know that to me, my love for Evil Dead as a franchise, I keep that close knit. I keep that to myself. And I haven't even told you guys before I picked this movie for the show. I'm like, I don't think I said to them how much I love Evil Dead. And because Scream, of course, the franchise that is Scream. Like I love that all those movies to death, but I want it to be different because Scream obviously is this big tentpole horror franchise. I'm like, let me pick something weird, and I knew Connor liked Evil Dead. I liked at the bare minimum. I'm like, you know what? Like I'll pick Evil Dead for the sake of this. And I like Connor. I forget when we had this discussion, but you're like, yes, and I'm like, yo, like hell yeah! If I can bring a franchise. At least one of the franchise entries into Reely Scared for this season, I'm more than cool with that. I can't wait till y'all talk about like Halloween or something, like one of those like iconic horror movies that if you were to do the oral history of the horror genre, that you can't mention it, you know, like or even like Invisible Man or Frankenstein or something like one of the Universal monsters. I feel like it's a matter of time for you guys.
Frankenstein.
Oh,
I lied. That's the one I'm picking. And if y'all ask me back, I'm picking I Frankenstein. Not Scream.
Victor Frankenstein back to back.
Oh Jesus, that's the watch along on. That's for Real Halloween 2 when that comes in October. We'll do those movies.
Gotta be careful. You gotta be careful with making fake plans on Reely Scared. They tend to pan out. You better be careful with that.
Right, apparently, but nothing beats the fear that was. Oh, we're actually doing Twilight, like that. It's like whoa, like we're gonna dedicate a whole day to it. All right, cool, but
yeah,
nah. Evil Dead 2 is the shit. It's really fun. It's so campy. It knows what it is. It's self-aware. It's a great movie to pop on. The easiest 80-some minutes of my week by far. But it's all on Bruce Campbell and Sam Raimi and what they do. And this movie and this whole series made them as filmmakers and as actors and whatever the hell other titles they carry. But damn it, I love Evil Dead 2, and I'm glad I got to talk about it with you guys.
There would be no Burn Notice with Bruce Campbell without Evil Dead.
Wow.
I'm telling you,
Did you like that poll?
There'd be no. I'm telling you, there'd be no like Bubba Hotep, right? We wouldn't have gotten.
Very true. No Bubba Hotep.
I would love to see that trilogy of Spider-Man movies without Sam Raimi. Because if this trilogy didn't come out, these films didn't come out, who knows if Sam Raimi even does Spider-Man? And maybe the whole narrative of the Spider-Man character on film is different than what it is now. Who knows?
Who knows who's calling out the human spider at that wrestling match against Bonesaw? Might not be Bruce Campbell. We might have gotten stuck with the James Cameron Spider-Man movie where he's like jerking off webs. Yeah,
it's crazy because it's crazy how much Evil Dead lamented or like cemented Sam Raimi as like a go-to for horror guy, because Marvel lost Scott Derrickson for Doctor Strange 2. They're like, we need a horror guy. This is our horror movie.
Mm-hmm.
Who's done comic book movies and who's like the horror guy?
And it's good at it.
Sam Raimi. So we're grabbing him. And it's already done filming and we know nothing about it. There's no set pictures or anything. Like, kept that set on lockdown. Probably going to deliver a fantastic, scary comic book movie. But it's crazy that he's still the horror guy.
Yeah.
Right. Mm-hmm. Even after Spider-Man. And we mentioned it earlier, there are a lot of the Spider-Man movies, those three, have a lot of horror influenced things in them. So, like, obviously, those movies are no stranger to what Sam Raimi's done before. But just look at Sam Raimi's filmography. There's always like the thriller, the horror, the darker themed films. And without crime wave tanking at the box office, like Evil Dead doesn't become a thing, at least maybe the way we know it now. And then who knows what the hell happens after that. So we can thank people not wanting to see crime wave. And we're like, you know what? Like, y'all did us a favor and y'all lit a fire under the ass of 6 incredible filmmakers and actors and actresses that inevitably became these big ass stars like Kathy Bates, Holly Hunter, Frances McDormand, the Coens, Sam Raimi, Ted Raimi. Like let's not sleep on the impact of Evil Dead. Like, let's not sleep on Evil Dead as a franchise. And holy shit. But the second one's my favorite, if I had to pick one.
Fair enough. I think that's usually considered. That's the most common favorite. I think is.
I'm not reinventing the wheel over here. I'm echoing a lot of sentiments. And if y'all would have asked me like a year or not even a year ago, like a couple months ago, like, Chris, like, what's a horror movie you can talk about for an extended period of time that isn't Scream? I'd be like, oh shit, like, what is one? But like, when y'all did this new template, I'm like, damn, what? Because I'd be lying if I said I wasn't thinking of one. I'm like, just in case they ask, or maybe I could be like, hey guys, can I be on your show? Like, what can I want to bring something. I don't want them to pick for me.
Yeah.
But like Evil Dead, like Evil Dead's the shit. Like, it's such a jam. And like, I appreciate y'all letting me come on here to do this. This was fun. I didn't know how long I'd be able to talk Evil Dead, but apparently I like it more than I thought I did.
Yeah, no, look, you get the three of us. I don't care what the subject is. I think we'll figure out a way to talk about it for a couple of hours. But what better subject than this? So thank you for bringing Evil Dead to us tonight. No it was likewise a great joy to talk about it and just have you on the show and get kind of a genre outsider perspective and find those movies that still kind of cross over to you and have that same impact and importance to you. And this is a great one. I love that you brought this because I never, like I said at the top of the show, never would have expected this to be the one you picked. And it's been really cool to get your own perspective on it too. So thank you for coming on and bringing Evil Dead here with you.
No doubt. If I would have known that Scooby-Doo was an option, I would have picked that 100%.
It was an option. You threw out another movie you were thinking about switching it to at one point. Do you remember what it was?
I said Evil Dead 2. Oh my God. I don't remember what it was.
You had, and look, maybe we could speak into existence. Who knows? I know you already said you're coming back to do, what did you say you're coming to?
Spider-Man 2 and Monsters Unleashed.
Yeah. Scooby-Doo. You had also floated the idea of doing Idle Hands.
Oh yeah! Yo, I love Idle Hands.
Did you? I've been begging for an Idle Hands episode. Seriously.
I love Idle Hands.
Idle Hands. Idle Hands was one of those movies that I had on DVD and I just played it over and over because it was so like I shouldn't be watching this.
It was on
My mom would
MTV
be so
all the
pissed if
time.
she saw me watching this movie right now.
Yo, right. It was on MTV all the time.
MTV and Sci-Fi, it was on all the time.
Right. And Devon Sawa is I can't.
Yeah, no, seriously, as Taylor, I've been like someone needs to pick Joe's Apartment and Idle Hands.
I was gonna say maybe I'll take Idle Hands. We'll put it on the break emergency glass right next to Joe's Apartment. We'll put them in the same case. We'll shut it, seal it really tight, and on a rainy day we'll pull that one out because it sounds like it would be a hit around these parts.
If y'all have like a last minute cancellation or like a last minute change of schedule, we're like, damn, we need an episode this week. What can we do? If y'all give me 3 hours notice, we can do Idle Hands. Like I got, like yo, and I forget why I even mentioned that to you. I think that movie, talk about ridiculous, but damn, is it fun? Damn, is it fun as hell?
We'll put that in the on the rainy day basket there, and we'll see when we need to pull it out. Idle Hands with Chris Anthony Lopez. Thank you again, man, for bringing this. This is a lot of fun. Love finally getting you on. Obviously, I think this is part of the show where I ask where people can find you. I think anybody watching this channel probably knows where they can find you, but just to be certain they don't sneak by. Chris Anthony Lopez, where can the ghouls and goblins find you out there?
No, totally. I mean, again, thank you guys so much. This was a lot of fun to do, seriously. And if y'all want me back on, totally. All I have to do is ask. And we can schedule something for way later. Because I initially wanted this to be like in November, but I got a lot of shit for waiting so long. But no, y'all can follow me on Twitter at the letter C, Anthony Lopez, not Ashtony, Anthony Lopez, ANTHONY. You can catch me on Spin from the Reel on Mondays, 8 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Central on this show. Talk about the Movie Trivia Schmodown. I know y'all have had some folks from the Movie Trivia Schmodown on this show. Well, we talk about them on our show on Mondays. They're coming on here talking about horror movies. We talk about them on Spin from the Reel on Mondays. Wrestle Reel, that'll be, what's today, Wednesday? That'll be on Friday, this upcoming Friday. Yes, you can see a Mildly Mug and the cute one, Who Are They Real, or What Real Entertainment, Nick Molbach, the co-founder. We do Wrestle Reel every Friday, 6 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Central. We will have my boy Jacob Pickett on the show. He joined us for a WrestleMania watch-along, so he'll join us this week for our show. We neglected to have one last week because of some scheduling, and I kind of went to go see my boys in Ohio. So we're doing a 5-count Big E episode on Friday. It'll probably be our one and only super show.
I love that.
We have WrestleMania Fallout to do on Friday, so come check us out there. And you can catch my personal podcast, For Chris's Sake, CHRIS', no extra S because the extra S is ill. Wherever you find your podcasts, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, any of that jam. I've had both of these guys on the pod talking about movies that aren't horror related in any way, shape, or form, especially Connor's. But those are all on there wherever you find your podcasts. I appreciate y'all bringing me on. For thank you guys so much.
Show, boy.
Yeah, right. And
you're welcome, Chris.
Thanks for coming.
You're welcome.
But we will have we'll have more Chris Anthony Lopez to share around the channel sooner rather than later, and we'll announce that when the time comes. And I'm really, really, really looking forward to doing it. But we'll get there when we get there. And again, thank you guys for having me on.
Thank you, buddy.
Thank you, friend. And of course,
used to hosting.
Go for it. You're better at it than I am. That's for sure. Do what you got to do. Of course, we'll be back next week. Going back to Thursdays, Wednesday night was just a one-off special. So thanks for those who tuned in and hung out with us tonight. Next week, we'll be back on Thursday at 8 p.m. Eastern time. Special guest, Mona Kabani, writer and author, just released her debut novel, Vanilla. She's coming on to talk about one of my favorite vampire movies, the original Swedish version of Let the Right One In. I understand she actually just read the book for the first time too in preparation for that. So it's going to be a really cool episode, really cool conversation. Looking forward to having Mona on. And of course, we'll be announcing our May schedule next week, as is tradition. Who's coming on? What movies are we talking about? We got another great month of Really Scared lined up for you, so tune in for that and see what we've got cooking up for you. It ain't idle hands, not yet.
Damn.
But it's still pretty good.
Break glass in case of emergency.
Oh, man. Once again, thank you, Chris, for joining us. Thank you, everybody who watched or listened, whether it be live or after the fact. We appreciate you. Leave a cutie and stay spooky. Good night, my friends.